So now let's move on to the last thing you're going to have to do for summer reading. First, you're going to choose 3 significant and memorable quotes. Make sure you copy the entire line from the text and cite the page number or the chapter. Write or type the quote correctly with quotation marks, and you'll see examples of this in just a minute. And in 3 paragraphs, explain the impact that each quote had on the tone of the text or the meaning of the text. So here's a little tip about quotations. I always call it the Facebook test. On Facebook, sometimes people will put up quotes, and these are quotes that are interesting or inspirational. Nobody ever puts up boring quotes. So as you read, have an eye for things that are interesting or inspirational, things that foreshadow the action of the story, quotes that reflect the main themes or define the character, quotes that show the talent or skill of the author. For example, if you find a really great metaphor or he just writes a sentence really well, you can analyze that. And then finally, quotes that answer the big so what of the book. What did the author want you to think about? How will you remember this reading experience? If you find a quote that reflects that information, then choose that one. All right, so here's some things not to quote. Don't quote minor details or events in the story. You can't really analyze that. And I provided the example of Little Red Riding Hood wore a red cape. Well, we know that. Her name is Little Red Riding Hood, and she gets the cape in chapter 1. But other than the fact that she's wearing it, I can't really go anywhere with it. I can't analyze its significance. So this is not a good quote. Famous lines. Well, everybody remembers from Little Red Riding Hood what big eyes you have. The wolf says that in chapter 4. Well, it's been done, okay? So don't pick things that have been done. Use a little bit of your own originality and dig deep and find really interesting things that the author is saying to you that speak to you. So this is not an example of a good quote. And finally, very short lines. I know some students just want to do the assignment, get it done, turn it in, and get the grade. But you're losing out on a great opportunity to really get to know a book. So instead of just using the quote, "Who's there?" from chapter 4, which the wolf says when Little Red Riding Hood knocks on the door. Again, this is like that first quoted. I really can't go anywhere with it. So choose quotes that are deep and meaningful and that you can actually write at least a paragraph about. All right, so let's go back to the prompt. In 3 paragraphs, explain the impact each quote had on the tone of the text and the meaning of the text. Cite the quote correctly. And you've now done this several times, so make sure you put the punctuation in correctly and the citation. Explain the tone or the meaning of the quote. Connect the tone or the meaning of the quote to the overall theme or plot of the book. So I've provided a list of tone words, actually 2 slides worth of tone words. These are great, and I provided the web page where I got them from if you want to look at more. This particular AP language teacher has more than 50 tone words, but I just gave you kind of a little taste of some words that you could use to describe your book. And here's some more, and these are great. So any of these would work. All right, so let's do a thinking aloud exercise. Some tone words support the overarching attitude and meaning of Little Red Riding Hood. So I went back to my list and I found didactic and fanciful. So didactic means the author is attempting to educate or instruct the reader. This is a fairy tale. So the author used narration to describe the story and was teaching me this lesson at the end, which is don't talk to strangers. It's also fanciful because obviously wolves can't talk. They can't have conversations with little girls. They certainly can't dress in old ladies' clothing. So there's a bit of imagination in this story. So I think those 2 words are great. I might use those. Actually, when I moved on to the paragraph, I found a different word altogether, which I'll get to in just a second. So let's take a look at how to set up the quotation paragraph. So I started mine with, at this point in the story, Little Red Riding Hood has been approached by the wolf and now they are engaging in a conversation. What I've done there is I provided some context for the quote. Instead of just starting with the quote and writing about the quote, remember your teacher hasn't read every single book that every single student is going to read for summer reading. So this gives the teacher, your audience for this assignment, a little bit of information, background information on this particular quote. The second part is I'm providing specific details, evidence from the text. Okay, and here's some of my analysis too. The reader hears the wolf's comments to Red as well as his comments to himself. I wanted to let my reader know that this quote that I'm using, the wolf said under his breath. Little Red Riding Hood did not hear it, but the audience, the reader, did. So here's my quote. Notice that it falls almost 3/4 of the way down into the paragraph, and I cited it with open parentheses, chapter 4, close parentheses, period. And the quotation marks are around the actual exact words. And then finally, I provided my tone word, and I decided to use the word callous because the wolf is a little bit like a serial killer. He has no humanity, he has no empathy or sympathy. All he wants is a meal, and that's what his quote was reflective of. He's sweet to Red verbally, but the reader knows the wolf intends to steal her basket, rob and eat her grandmother, and ultimately eat Little Red Riding Hood as well. So those are the different tasks that you're supposed to do to finish the summer reading assignment. First is theme. Remember, that's worth 20 points, so write with great detail and provide lots of evidence to support the themes that you've selected. Second, if you're doing fiction, you're going to analyze 2 characters. And if you're doing nonfiction, you're going to analyze characters, events, or situations. And that's worth 10 points. And then finally, quotations. You're going to pick 3 quotations, and you're going to analyze those quotations, especially for tone and meaning, and that's also worth 10 points. Now, a final component to this assignment is an in-class essay. The in-class essay will be done during the week of August 26th through the 29th for the fall English classes, and for the week of January 27th through 31st for the spring English classes. But make sure that you have your book. If you have your book on a device, electronic device, you need to bring that in. If you have a paper copy of your book, then you need to have that on your desk. If you check the book out from the library, make sure you recheck it out and have it with you. If you and your friend are sharing a book, make sure you have the book in class. Part of the assignment might be that you need to flip through the book and find evidence. Now, if you read the book a long time ago, it would be really hard for you to do a book assessment in January if you don't have a copy of the book. So make sure that you have the book with you, and you'll do really well on the in-class essay part of the assignment. So if you have any questions, ask a Campbell High School English teacher. Happy reading!